This degree I will give you a word from the play and the Chukwemekake. Demos mixed with Roman equals demon. And also Plato and his works on the democracy. Now, I would like to give you my source, which the title, well, it's one of my many sources, obviously, but one of the main sources on this video that I'm going to be touching on is Victor Duroy's, translated by John Christmas, The World of the Greeks. And I'm talking about page 43. I also quote toward the end of the book, some of the last 10 pages of the book. But toward 43, we talk about, right about the second to last paragraph. All the Hellenic tribes adopted the cult of Apollo, and at the foot of his altars in common prayer and faith, men of Dorian stock and Ionian Greeks met. Sparta did nothing without consulting his oracle at Delphi, and Athens, along with all of Ionia, honored him at Delos by solemn festivities. Even greater honors awaited the god of Delphi in the last days of paganism, when the Emperor Aurelian called him the Deus Certus, and Julian made him the king of the sky and the world. But even before them, Pindar had already given him some of the characteristics of a Mosaic Jehovah, God Almighty. So it goes on to talk about the Hellenic cults, the Etruscans, etc., and how Apollo is the equivalent of Jesus, you could say. Not just Serapis. Because he comes from the sun temples and is the sun god. And let me give you a picture on this page to help put it in perspective for you. Okay? I don't want to take too much of the work, but that is the Gorgon's head. And we go on to talk about the first woman on earth, Pandora, right? And how she has the world's evils and she lets them out, and how you can draw parallels between that and the Garden of Eden. Now, remember, Greece got their mythology from Egypt, and even combined them together at one point because they knew the true roots of not only their people but their belief system comes from Egypt. So it's important to note that it was the mix between the white and the black. Now I will tell you a little story that only the higher degrees are likely to believe. There was a woman, and one memory I have of her is being behind me. And she looked Asian. And I remember at that moment I felt something, but it wasn't anything bad. But in looking back, in retrospect, I believe that it could have been something negative. I'm not sure what to think of it, but what I know is that this female, this woman, brought up the mysteries and Pandora. And it's important to notice that Aphrodite, Athena, Zeus, they're all involved in the creation of Pandora and partially to blame in the way she came out. So when we were talking about the mysteries, Pericles, 494 BC, the Olympic Games, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Alexander the Great, when we are talking about the mysteries, where did they come from? Where did they go? Why was ebony and gold and ivory, etc., one of the key materials in the buildings of the Hellenistic cults and their mysteries? And the cults of Dionysus, the cult of Apollo. Why was the mission to the moon the Apollo mission, Apollo 13, etc.? Because we live in a time of a Roman democracy. demonocracy, and also the republic coming from the philosophers of Greece and the temples of Seti. Now, many people in Greece are righteous people, but the majority and the people who control them come from the temple of Seti and Pan. Remember the Norse gods as well. Freya. Remember the different mythologies. Now I quote great figures of mythologies by Peter Clayton. Remember that this all ties together. That the reason why you have light and dark portrayed in Greek art, and you have the same idea, the flame, representing the sun god, Heru. Remember, I showed you the picture of Heru leading the initiate. And in turn, they took the idea and started their cults in Greece. And they had many great ideas. One of the things that the Pandora's box could contain is the mummy of Seti. You have to understand all the different instruments of evil that were unleashed. The ability to take fire from the gods that Prometheus undertook. You have to understand Minoa and Crete and the Minotaur. You have to understand that the people who control our society are using the lens of the Romans, the Greeks, and their competitors are the white racists who use the Norse, like Thor and Loki, and the biker gangs that adopt their ideology as well and rape women as well. The Hell's Angels, the Mongols, who aren't as bad as the Hell's Angels. Then you have the factions that fight with the Hell's Angels and that are a part of the Hell's Angels, who are using mythology and mythological concepts from Greece. Hand-me-down African knowledge that has a white man's twist, which I may add is quite sinful and deadly. And those of you who are so pompous and you ride your pale horse and you think you know what you are saying, you think you understand the food that you are eating and where it comes from, and the difference and the nuances between the bread that trickles down from Satan and that which comes from God. Ask any man who has a gluten intolerance or is allergic to milk the difference between the liquid they consume and the bread, and ask them if it matters. And which bread is more nutrient rich? It is the wheat, not the white. The rye, not the white. Pericles and Panthania would be jealous of even Tot and Typhoon, because the lens the Greeks have used, the ancient Greeks and the Egyptos, and the difference and the nuances between Greece and ancient Greece, as well as the language changes, the etymology of words. Jupiter, Saturn, the festival of Saturnalia. Understand what even Jordan Maxwell and the Eurocentric schools of thought have picked up on. That the dark arts of Europe are hand-me-down voodoo and Egyptian cult mythology. Thank you.